In all the branches of federal government, Congress is the one that is closest to the people. Congress has the power to make laws, and only Congress. Understanding the gravity of this power, the framers designed Congress to answer to the people through direct elections. As you should already know from 8th grade civics, Congress consists of 535 members. 435 members are in the House of Representatives and 100 in the Senate. You should also know the qualifications for becoming a member of both houses. Just in case you forgot, to be a member of the House of Representatives, you must be 25 years of age and reside in the state you want to represent. For the Senate, you must be at least 30 years of age, and you must also reside in the state. You should also remember the length of term of a member of Congress. But just in case you forgot that too, here is a reminder. The term of a member of the House of Representatives is 2 years, and for a member of the Senate, the term is 6 years. Members of Congress mostly come from occupations with high status and usually have substantial income. Many are from the legal or business fields. Yes, the ethnic and racial makeup of Congress doesn't really reflect that of the rest of society, but it is slowly changing. We will discuss the makeup of Congress in class. The incumbency effect impacts who is elected to Congress. As we discussed earlier, those in class, those who are the incumbents tend to be reelected, and thus reducing high turnover of members of Congress. Of the two houses, the House of Representatives originally reflected the will of the people. If you recall, prior to the 17th Amendment, senators were not elected by the people, but rather the state legislatures. When the Constitution was drafted, the framers thought the Senate would protect elite interests. Other than originally being elected by the popular vote of the people, can you think of other ways the House of Representatives is closer to the people? Think about the number of people represented and the frequency of elections. Please be ready to respond when you return to class. Just like separation of powers exists between the three branches of government, it also exists between the two houses of Congress. Since the House of Representatives is intended to be closer to the masses, the power of initiating all revenue bills and of impeaching officials are given to the House. The Senate is responsible for ratifying all treaties, confirming presidential nominations, and for trying impeached officials. Why did the framers create a bicameral legislature? This slide will address some of the reasons and the intended purpose of a bicameral legislature. Bicameralism allows for each branch to have a particular role and function. For example, since everyone in the House of Representatives is up for re-election every 2 years, they reflect the popular will. Conversely, since only 1/3 of the Senate is up for re-election every 2 years, they represent stability. Both houses can set their own agendas, and both use committees to narrow down thousands of bills that are introduced. As I discussed in the previous slide, both houses have different responsibilities, which is a form of separation of powers. You can see this in the procedure for impeachment. The House of Representatives issues articles of impeachment, and the Senate convicts. Bicameralism also moderates the influences of members. Before a bill makes it to the president's desk for his signature, it has had numerous votes in both the committee and on the floor of both houses. This process also allows for bargaining and compromise. The only leadership position in Congress mentioned in the Constitution are the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate. You should know that the President of the Senate is the Vice President. Of the two positions, only one really has a say in what happens in Congress, and that is the position of the Speaker of the House. Much of the leadership in Congress is really party leadership. The power is hierarchical and rests with the people who have been chosen by their party. The majority leader, minority leader, and whips are put in those positions by the members of their party caucus. The Speaker of the House is second after the Vice President in line to succeed if a president resigns, dies in office, or is impeached. The formal powers of the Speaker today include presiding over the House when it is in session, making committee assignments, and exercising control over which bills get assigned to which committees. The Speaker also has a say in who become members of the party leadership. How does one become the Speaker of the House? He is chosen from the majority party. Once the party caucus decides who will be the Speaker, it then goes to a vote of the whole House. Since the Speaker represents the entire House, she is not necessarily responsible for rounding up votes for her party. That job is left up to the majority leader. Each House has both a majority leader and a minority leader. As you can probably guess, the majority and minority leaders are responsible for representing the interests of their party. In the case of the majority leader, he or she is responsible for not only rounding up votes, but also responsible for scheduling bills in their respective houses. Another key leadership role is that of the party whip. In both houses, there is a majority whip and a minority whip. A whip is responsible for working with the majority leader to round up votes for the party. The whip is also the go-between the rank and file members in the leadership. He or she reports the views and complaints of the party members to the leadership. The President of the Senate is the Vice President, and his role is to break ties and preside over the Senate. Who presides over the Senate when the Vice President is not available? That job goes to the President pro tempore. The President pro tem is the longest-serving member of the majority party. Have you ever turned on C-SPAN to watch Congress at work? If you haven't, you should. It is exciting TV. If you have watched it, you would notice that when the camera is focused on the actual chambers in which the houses meet, that nothing is really happening. The real action is not on the floor of the House, but rather in committee rooms. Most of the work of Congress occurs in committees, which dominates congressional policy making. Once a bill has been introduced, it is assigned to a committee which holds hearings and markup meetings. Ultimately, every piece of legislation that is sent to the President for his signature is finalized in a committee. When Congress is drafting and finalizing bills, this is the legislative function of Congress. Congress also has an oversight function. Congressional committees have the authority to hold hearings, to investigate problems, possible wrongdoings, monitor the bureaucracy, and to investigate the executive branch. Have you ever turned on C-SPAN and watched Congress at work? Sorry, I just did that. Pause for a minute. Okay, I'm ready. How does one get on a committee? It is pretty simple. After a new member has been elected, she requests from congressional leaders and members of her state delegation her committee preference. Ultimately, the committee assignment is a decision of leadership. Ideally, a member of Congress will be placed on a committee that allows her to serve her constituency in her district or state. Committee membership consists of members from each party, but the committee chair in the majority party of the committee will come from, I'll try that one again. Committee membership consists of members from each party, but the committee chair and a majority of the committee members will come from the majority party. The most important member on a committee is the chair. That person is responsible for scheduling hearings, appointing subcommittees, managing committee bills, and deciding when a bill would be sent to the floor for a vote. The seniority system used to be very important and powerful. Whoever the longest-serving member of the majority party was would automatically be selected as the committee chair. That rule changed in 1970, and now both houses permit members of both parties to vote on who will be the committee chair. What is the relationship between incumbency and committee membership? The answer is quite simple. If you serve on a committee, that allows you to bring services and projects to your district. It increases the chances of you being reelected. Your constituents will remember what you have done for them and want to reelect you. There are 4 types of committees: standing, joint, select, and conference. I am not going to define them for you, but I suggest you know the definition of them before the chapter quiz. When we meet next, we will examine further the mysteries of Congress.